And we're live.
Yay! Well, welcome everyone. We're so excited to be here. This is the Renegade Society radio show, and I am Sarah Erickson, Director of Sales and Marketing here at Renegade Game Studios. And I am so excited to be joined here today by Eric Yurko from What's Eric Playing. Thank you for joining us. How's it going?
Me. It's good. It's good. You know, it's Friday. I finally have figured out that today is Friday. It takes me a couple days, every couple of days now. But yeah.
I really thought about trying to ask you a trick question of what day it is today, but
I
we'd
wouldn't
already
have gotten it. I would have literally made up an 8th day, even though we literally just talked about it. I'd have been like, yeah, it's from day. And I'm like, that's not even a good joke.
Well, yes, we have all been quarantined for long enough that even the days are going together, but it also means that I haven't gotten to meet a lot of new people lately, and so it's really nice to get to meet you, because even though I know who you are because I've watched tons of your videos, I don't know that we've actually ever really met and had a conversation, so I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, likewise.
It should be exciting. So just for everybody watching really quick, we're going to go through a few very exciting interview questions, and then we'll be putting up a link and a code word for our giveaway for Clip Cup Parks and the Search for Planet X this week. And then we'll have time for questions at the end. So if you have questions while we're chatting, please post those in the chat and we will get to those and definitely answer as many as we can by the end. So, Eric, welcome, like I said. And
thanks for having me.
Please let us know, what do you do in the board game world? Because I'm a little aware of what your role is, but for any of our viewers, just let them
know. So I dabble around, right? One thing I really enjoy doing is photography. So I really like a lot of different forms of presentation in games. So getting to capture them on, I was going to say film, and then I realized it's not a real thing anymore. I'm a great photographer. But just getting to capture them and then like work with the photos to edit them and highlight the things that I think are exciting is really compelling to me. And another function of that is I often write about games. So I'll write up long form reviews. I prefer reading text, so I tend to do most of my work over text. And so between the writing and the photography, that mostly encapsulates what I like to do. Beyond that, I tend to also try to advocate for diversity and inclusion in the gaming sphere. So whenever possible, I try to make sure that that's top of mind as well.
That's fantastic. So back to photography for a second. Almost everyone on the planet now has a really incredible camera in their pocket all the time. So for anyone who maybe wants to know a little bit better how to use this fantastic piece of equipment, what is one thing that you think would really help just an average person who wants to take really beautiful board game photos?
I'd say a lot of it comes down to angles. So I know it's a silly thing, but like the thing that I've got this room that I'm in is actually a room where I do a lot of my photography. It's our dining room / my like photography studio. But it's got recessed overhead lights that are pretty warm. And so that means that it tends to cast a pretty strong orangish glare on a lot of games while we're playing. So when you're thinking about it, you're immediately like, oh, I want to take a picture of this board. So I want to get right up above the board and then take a shot from straight above. That's usually a bad angle for this kind of lighting, because what it'll do is it'll cast my shadow on top of the board game. Or even if I'm not in the shot, it'll cast usually like a very harsh, like on the game board. So trying to like lean around and figure where you can get the best shot, so you're avoiding both shadows and glare, is going to naturally make, I'd say, a solid chunk of your photos turn out better.
Nice. Yeah. So what do you do after you take those photos? Because I've got about 60,000 photos of my dog and board games on my phone right now. So what happens after you get that great angle?
Well, so if I'm using my DSLR, so I have a camera that I prefer for this sort of thing. If I'm using that, I'll usually go into like Photoshop and try to clean it up a bit. So try to de-emphasize stuff around the subject of my shot, and also I tend to do a little bit more stuff with like playing with saturation to try and get the color to come out. That's generally why I like games that have a lot of like bright, vivid color. That's something that appeals to me a lot. So I try to make sure that I highlight it in my photography. Generally speaking, most phone cameras will offer some sort of light editing. I think Adobe has a mobile app that works pretty well for that as well. And there are a few other I want to say like Polar or something. I can't remember off the top of my head. I secretly do a lot of my editing in like the native Instagram app, and so I catch a lot of flack from my other photographers.
Hey, if it works and it's efficient, that sounds pretty good.
I mean, it
And
works.
that's for more average people who just want to take a nice picture of the board game they're playing and post it. So
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
actually really encouraging.
Yeah, a lot of people aren't going to yell at you for your like for anything being too high or too low if you're just taking photos to share with your friends anyways. One thing that I don't do that I kind of wish I did more of is get other people in the shot. I try to take very seriously the idea that people don't necessarily want their pictures blasted all over the internet. So in lieu of asking aggressively every time while we're in the middle of a game and like stopping the process, I tend to just put pictures of the game itself. So I probably owe someone like maybe like a couple bucks here or there for using their hand, but beyond that, I try to make sure that I'm being respectful of the people that are playing a game with me and not just like invading the game with like photography the entirety of the time. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I think that's a really fine balance because we play games because we like to be together and we like to share this experience around a table. But the games we have in front of us are incredible pieces of artwork that somebody has spent a lot of time creating. And so it's easy, I think, to get really drawn in and want to take really beautiful pictures of the thing in front of you. But it's hard to capture the entire experience, and especially without ruining the experience and making it some weird setup shot. But I do wish that we could get more of that sometimes in board game photography in an easy and maybe casual way, just seeing all the people that you really care about. It's nice to look back at those photos later, but probably not as good for Instagram.
Yeah, that is one nice thing about taking photos at board game conventions is I'm often playing games with other creators that I know. So there's generally a like blip at the end of the game where everyone's like, wow, this is a really good game. Does anyone want to take a photo? And like 3 or 4 people are like, oh yeah, let me get my phone real fast. And so that pause is much more acceptable than if you're like, going to a friend's place and you're in the middle of the game and they're like about to roll the dice and you're like, oh, don't roll the dice. I want to take a picture of this exact moment. And they just sort of look at you funny and you're like, I've made it weird. But
yeah, it's easy to ruin that moment probably. Oh no. Well, you mentioned conventions. So obviously we're not going to have a lot of opportunities to all get together in tens of thousands of people, probably for the next foreseeable future.
Yeah.
But we are running our own virtual convention here, Renegade Con. We just announced that this week. So as far as your experience goes with regular conventions, what would you hope to see in a digital convention that still gives you the things that you really love about board games?
So a lot of I'm spitting, I'm working off the cuff here, but a lot of the stuff that I tend to go to board game conventions for is experiences that I may not necessarily be able to get in my like local game store, right? So some people go for a variety of different reasons, either like early access to games. That's what drives a lot of Gen Con attendance, for instance. And I assume Origins. This was supposed to be my first year at Origins, but so I'd say promos are always nice. One thing that I enjoy getting a chance to do is I'll occasionally try to get like copies of my game signed by the designer or the artist. So I try to do that at cons if I can. And so I think making some of those available to people, maybe as prizes or raffles or something, is something that may be able to like draw people's interest a fair amount. There's always, so there are, and this is a place where I get a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Not frustrated, but I have a little bit of complex feelings about. I know that there are folks that like do convention exclusive stuff, and I have a minor, what's what I'm looking for? I tend to try and complete things. I'm a fair bit of a completionist, so I tend to not like exclusives because a lot of times I just miss them and then I can never get them. But making things, I like the idea of having things being like, I'm okay with things that are early launch at conventions or like early launches on Kickstarter and then they're available to people after the fact. And I think that even that having like, if you want to do something that was like a Renegade Con, not exclusive, but like you know how they have like timed exclusives for game consoles now? It's something that'll come out on the PlayStation first, and then it'll come to Switch eventually. Something that's still available for people that want to attend and like get it first and have that, but then making it available to the wider audience after the fact is, I think, pretty nice. And there's all sorts of stuff you can do in that space, right? There's some people will do like play mats, they'll do themed sheets for games. You know, you could even imagine something that's like clip cut parks, but the papers are all like Renegade-ish themed, and so it's like a little like themed spin on clip cut parks. You're making almost like Renegade game parks, or like making a board game cafe or something out of a similar style. And those sorts of things are things I think that would still give me an experience. It's like, oh, I'm excited to be attending this event, even though I can't physically attend. Naturally, the con stuff that I tend to like the best is being able to see my friends that aren't necessarily local, or talk directly to. I tend to talk to publishers or designers of these sort of things to sort of get a heads up of what's going on in the industry, or it's just nice to see people every now and then. So yeah. I'd say that, yeah, without having to be able to have a like a digital booth front or something for people to like mill around, that's tough, but I think people are trying to do the best they can. So I'm excited to see what people end up doing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm really impressed with the ingenuity that I'm seeing in not only our industry, but other industries that do rely heavily on trade shows. And I think it's going to be really cool to see what happens once we have the option of where I'm sure that people crave that actual ability to be face to face with each other, and that when we can do that again safely, we're all going to love to see all of our friends again. But I think that we're going to find some things in the digital space that allow us to maybe get together or have some of these shared experiences at times of the year when we wouldn't otherwise be able to, which is pretty cool. I think we're going to end up with the best of both worlds.
Oh yeah. And there's already cool stuff happening in like digital space, right? Like a lot of cool work was done with Gen Can't last year and in previous years. I love what they're doing around like specifically like themed design competitions. And I think that's a place where like the virtual space can really shine. Like I'm fully expecting to see things that are like designed for virtual or designed for games that can be played over like Zoom, FaceTime, Hangouts, what have you. But I think that there's a lot of opportunity there to challenge like people who are at home to see what they can come up with. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes out of that. Because I think it was Gen Can't last year, Button Shy had a contest, and the two games that came out of it were Tussie Mussy by Elizabeth Hargrave and Corey Damie's Seasons of Rice, I think, and they were both excellent. So
was that, I know they did one that was a roll and write competition at some point. Is that what that one was, or is it something different?
I think Button Shy was the 18 card game. I want to say that, and this guy could be completely off base, so I apologize to anyone that I offend with getting this wrong. But I feel like Welcome to Dino World won the Gen Can't roll and write a few years back. My memory is very fuzzy, but
that's fair. Yeah, I do really like that they do that. I think it's super cool, and especially because not everyone can attend conventions all the time.
Right.
Like you can go to a fair number of them and get to go and have that experience, but that's just not the reality for everyone in our country or around the world. So it's cool that we have some other options. Yeah. And Gen Can's great. If anybody doesn't know about that, it's just do Gen Con on your own at home kind of an experience, and there's lots of cool people that get together and make that fun.
Oh yeah, it's great. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, definitely. So your actual day job is in the digital world. So you probably get a lot of digital experiences all day long, every day. What is some advice you would give for people who are just now learning about having to work from home on their computer all day long, as far as game convention goes? So maybe you haven't ever done like Zoom or any of that before. So what would you sort of tell people to get ready?
I would just really emphasize that having a nice chair is important. I was sitting on my dining room chair for the first 2 weeks, and every day when I would like get up after work, my legs would be sore from just like, it's actually, I'll be honest, it's a $50 IKEA chair. We got the cheapest at shows, and that's fine. Get the chairs you need to hold the dining room together. But I think that having a like actually nice office chair has been a real lifesaver in just being in this work from home space a lot. And I've been trying to get some like non-screen time, given that my day has gone from, to be fair, 8 hours of screen time plus to probably 12 or 13 hours of screen time plus that I'm trying to like rest my eyes every now and then. And so that's where I'll generally try to play a board game or a solo game.
Definitely. That's something that I didn't appreciate as much before because I really like to be outside and do a lot of stuff away from my computer and whatnot. But with more and more time focused on, of course, I've worked from home for a long time, but on things going digital, I have been spending more time in front of my computer as well. And just reminding yourself that stopping the digital stuff, doing a puzzle, playing a board game, getting outside is really, really important because it makes you want to do those things even more when you've spent so much time in front of a screen. Mm-hmm. And now, like with my board game group, because we can't get together and play games, we've been trying to play games on digital formats. And so I'm spending all this time working from home on my computer. And then I go straight from work to playing board games on my computer. I'm like, I need a break. I need to see actual people and play board games in front of them.
Oh yeah, I'm super trying also to not let like the "you have a new move in Carcassonne" notification pop up when I'm like in the middle of a meeting or something, and I'm like, who would do that? But
oh no,
it's fine. Sometimes it's with the person who I'm in the meeting with, so I'll be in a one-on-one, and they're like, "Okay, do you want to like talk shop but also play Carcassonne?" And it's like, sure.
Why not? That seems pretty good.
we can both it.
Oh my goodness. So obviously you love board games, you love photography, all of that's really super cool. But how did you get into board games in the first place?
So, oh man. So this is a common disputed point with my dad. I will say generally, oh, we grew up playing board games. We played board games all the time when I was growing up. And he's like, no, we didn't. I'm like, it's like we owned a copy of Pit. I haven't even heard of Pit since then. Like I remember very fondly we had Clue, Life, Monopoly, Pit, Othello, and I want to say Careers. Actually, I definitely want to say Careers. I still have a copy of it. Oh, Careers was this like wild little roll and move game. So basically you'd start the game with 3 resource types: fame, money, and happiness. You'd write down on the pad how much of each you wanted to have. It had to add to 60. At any point in the game, if you complete that, if you get those 3, you win. But wow. So you roll.
I don't know of any other game with that win condition. It's close to like Bridge, but not even quite that.
Yeah, I love this game. It's so you roll 2 dice and you move around the board. So it's kind of Monopoly-esque in that you've got the spaces around the outside board. But on certain spots, you'd land on a space that's like, oh, I want to go to college, or I want to go into business. And that's where you take on your career. And you'd actually go on a little inner track inside the like center spot of the board to go through more spaces to try and gain happiness and money. I still think it's great, but
oh, that's funny.
Restoration won't respond to my emails anymore. So.
I think most of us have one of those games. Like my family, we played this game called Fill or Bust, and it's basically a modified version of something sort of like Yahtzee minus the roll and write part of it. So you're like rolling dice. It's really a push your luck game. You roll the dice, and if you go too far over, or you roll the dice and you don't get any scoring dice, then your turn is just over, you bust, and you don't collect the points. But if you roll the dice and you get scoring dice, then you can stop at any time and keep those. And you flip over cards, like 1 card every round, and the card will tell you, well, if you do fill your stuff, you get an extra 300 points. Or you can just keep rolling until you bust and keep all your points, or a variety of other things. So you flip over a card and then you push your luck. And that's all it is, but it was our favorite game. We played that so much when I was a kid. And a bunch of other games too. But man, I wish they would bring that back.
Oh, we wore through a copy of Careers, and I actually bought a newer, maybe like I think they made a like remaster of it in the early 2000s. I bought another copy of it before I went to college, and it's actually still on top of one of my shelves, and I play it every so often. I've been meaning to like actually sit down, like play it out, and like write up a review of what I think of it. But
you should do that. I love it.
It's on my list of like, it's on a very long, like 600 or 700 line spreadsheet list of like games that I'm eventually going to get to. But
so how did you decide to start reviewing games? You have a very long list, it sounds like.
Yeah. Well, I keep track of everything I've ever reviewed. So I have a spreadsheet that I've been tracking that. It's starting to slow down because I have too much data in it. But basically I came into a lot of free time after I finished up school and like started my job and like transitioned to a spot where I was actually like, comfortable in my career work. And I was suddenly like, oh, when I was in school, most of my time was spent just doing school things, or we would, play the occasional game. I got Pandemic for my birthday senior year, and it was sort of all downhill from there in terms of just like, oh, I got Pandemic. I guess I should get Seven Wonders. I guess I should get Saboteur. I guess I should get Hanabi. I guess I should get Lanterns. And then we just like started spiraling upwards until we got like, I guess I should buy another shelf for all the games that I have. Oh, I guess I should open up the basement and start putting all the games that I don't play anymore in boxes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's there was an escalation path that I think I missed the slippery slope signs, and it's too late now. But
hey, don't worry, a lot of us have done that. I own a store because I have too many games, so hey.
I empathize strongly. But I basically got to the point where I was like, oh, what should I be doing with my free time now that my free time isn't just ruled by classes? So I was talking to a friend who was writing at the time. She was doing a long form recipe book of her trying to cook every recipe you could cook in Final Fantasy XIV, but in real life. So fascinating stuff. And she was like, have you considered writing? And I was like, I don't think I'd be any good at it. And she's like, then start writing, be bad at it, get through the bad part, and then become better at it. And I had never really thought about it like that. I just kind of assumed that it was something that, like, there's a switch in the back of your mind that's just like good at writing. But yeah, no, it turns out that the more you do something, the better you feel, at least the better you feel about doing it, right? So started doing it, kept writing, and now here we are. So
that's awesome. So
yeah.
Do you feel like your tastes have evolved over the course of starting from Pandemic and careers and going all the way to really analyzing the games that you're playing?
I really want to say that they have. I don't really think that they have. Like, I want to be like, oh, I have very high, like, highfalutin tastes now. Like, I only play like, the highest quality of, and I'm like, no, that's not true. I definitely have some games that I will just play because I think that they're fun and dumb and short, and that's exactly what I'm looking for sometimes. It's just like, oh, like, I think my soft spot has always been for Oink games. So like the, yay big little boxes. I think I have played maybe one of their like 25 or 26 game catalog that I was like, I can see how other people might like this. It's not for me personally, but every other one I've been like, this is a blast. I'm having a great time.
Yeah. My group has so much fun with startups. I think that game is just fantastic.
Oh, God, I just like clean blanked what my favorite one is. I know it's in my brain somewhere and I've completely lost it. And I'm like, this is so weird for me. Cause I'm like, I know I have a favorite Oink game, but if you ask me right now, I'm like, it's definitely
Deep Adventure, Fake Artist in New York.
Love them all.
Insider.
Love Insider.
There's the weird one with the amoebas on the cover.
Got it. Nine Tiles Panic. There it was.
I was like, I played that one.
Oh, it's real time. It's like a real-time city building game. So you've got exactly 9 tiles. You have to build a little city with like aliens, and the aliens want to eat hamburgers, and that's like the whole thing. Like the aliens
hamburgers, that's perfect.
Yeah,
I like it.
They've shown up. They're like, we would like hamburgers, and that's how things are going to go down.
I love it so much. That's hilarious. I think all of us want hamburgers about now. That's very relatable.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's a bunch of aliens have landed. They all want haircuts. It's like, oh my gosh.
Nice. Oh man. So yeah, it sounds like you like lots of different types of games. That's fantastic. But yeah, of course, there are people who decide that they need to pick the best ones. And I've heard about this thing called the American Tabletop Awards. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the American Tabletop Awards is a media organization award that a few other content creators and I spun up, I guess, almost 2 years ago to basically, we wanted to talk about which games we thought were like really great or which games were like highlights of the year. And it felt a little, this is just me speaking for me personally, since there's a large swath of games that I just don't cover for a variety of reasons. Either they take 3 hours to play and I cannot convince anyone that I know to play them with me, or they take 10 minutes to play, but they're real time and they're Zogan and no one will play them with me again because of one incident. It's fine.
It wasn't with Fuse, was it?
No, I like real-time games a lot, but other people don't like me when we play real-time games, I think is what we're getting to. But so we wanted to try and find people with a variety of tastes, variety of preferences, and get something that we felt pretty comfortable about, that we're like, these are games that we think people should play. You know, like focusing that on also the wider audience of, you know, beyond you and me, right? There's a whole like mass market of folks that, you know, their exposure to the board gaming sphere is increasing thanks to a lot of the work that like Target is doing, but it's still very much in the like, oh, like, I have friends that are telling me like, oh, I started off by playing Monopoly and Clue, and then I moved on to, you know, X thing or Y thing, and now they may have just picked up like Villainous, for instance. That's one that's appealing to a lot of my friends who are Disney fans. They're like, what's next? And so I think that the goal with the American Tabletop Awards, or the ATTIC committee, was that we wanted to talk to people and make a ramp for like what's next, right? So we wanted to focus on 4 categories. We wanted to focus on games that are good for people into gaming. We've referred to that as early gamers. We didn't want to call it like kids games or family games. We wanted something that's much more like, this is a good ramp for games that are like, I think one of the ones that popped up in the last one was Snowman Dice. It is fundamentally a game that is incredibly silly. I love playing every time that I pick it up. And I would say it's not really at least the way some of my friends play it is not a kid's game.
It's by Mike Elliott, right? I'm thinking of the right game.
I think so. It's the one where you like roll the dice, build a snowman, and then you have to like move it with one finger to the North Pole, but another player can put a snowball down and explode your snowman.
It's so goofy and fun.
Oh man, it's so much fun.
That's
but
awesome.
Yeah, and I think we ended up settling on like Draftosaurus, which I think Draftosaurus is just an incredible title. Like, you know, it's got exactly what you want, because it's got those tiny little dinosaur pieces that are all brightly colored, and as soon as you see it, and this happened to me when I played it with like friends, played it at a convention, someone's like, "What is that?" You're like, "Oh, it's this," and then they come over and they want to know more about it, and there's something to that appeal, right? Mm-hmm. And so sorry.
I've been thinking about games for new players a lot lately, because there's so many people really interested in board games that weren't before. Of course, right. Everyone understands what Monopoly is at a basic level, but so many people are suddenly like, I'm bored in my house. What do I do? And I actually have a good friend who is in this situation. I know her because our dogs are friends. And we do a lot of outdoor activities together, but she's never played a game before, like any games of any type. And so I've been trying really hard to think of games for her. And I think that's one of the hardest but most important categories in our industry. So it's really cool that you have an award for that.
Right. Yeah. We wanted to essentially build a ramp in. And then we talked a little bit more about like casual games. So casual games are, I'd say, probably more firmly my forte. They're games that are, you know, quicker to play, not that complicated to pick up, but are something that has like a fair bit of, you know, depth to it. So I think this year it was Ship Shape, which I love. If you haven't played that one, it's it's a really ingenious little concept. So it's basically, you play only 3 turns, and you play 3 turns each round, 3 rounds, so 9 total turns. And what you're doing is you're building out these like 3x3 little like grid boards that you stack on top of each other, and each board has parts cut out of it so you can see what's below it. And so when you look from it top down, you get a sense of like what's in your ship's hold, and that determines the value of your ship each round. But so you'll essentially, it's not quite a bid, you'll play a card that determines what order you take the top tile in. Dead simple, and I really like the spatial mechanics of it a lot. And so I find that appealed to a lot of members of the committee, and we were all really enthusiastic about that.
That's cool. If you have a lot of people with different tastes and all of you agree on something, that must really mean it's good.
Yeah, I personally think it's great. It's a game that I've very frequently. So I tend to be a bit of a. I'm trying to think of a polite word for jerk, but I'm just going to go with jerk.
You can call yourself jerk. I think that's okay.
About playing some games. So generally, when I go to someone's place, I'm like, "Oh, I've got a bunch of review copies. I need to play through them. Please help me." And they're like, sure. A lot of my friends are very sick of learning new games, justifiably, but we'll see how that shakes out long term.
No friends. Sorry.
But Ship Shape is one that I definitely keep bringing around because people have asked me for it specifically. Strategy, you know, it's the strategy games category was our next one. We wanted something with a little bit more weight to it, and I mean, Wingspan was just it's Wingspan. I hardly need to say more about it than just it's got points on presentation, it's got points on strategy. Like, it's a beautiful game about birds. I've got a lot of friends who are very into birds. I guess I just found this out. Like, it's not really something that comes up in casual conversation. Like, you like birds?
Yeah, there's all these like closet bird nerds. It's bizarre, but
I think it's delightful.
Like, I love birds too, but I didn't realize how much I even liked birds until I played that game. And all of these ones that I see in my backyard all the time, and my husband and I talk about the flicker that we saw or the shriek that we had outside our window. It's like a big deal to us personally, and then seeing them in the cards in the game is actually really, really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure a lot about that experience.
I've been begging Elizabeth for like a penguin-centric expansion. I have a very soft spot for flightless birds, I think. I think it's something about like birds are supposed to fly and these ones can't, and I find that very relatable. Just in terms
Hilarious.
just like yeah, that's actually a mood, little buddy. I also feel like there's something I'm supposed to be doing that I can't do.
Only penguins. I would play that version. We should definitely
penguins, some kiwis, like a platypus that's just really uncomfortable. Like, I'm very pro this idea.
It'd be an easy expansion. You just add another row to the bottom, just on the ground.
Just make like a they have like the card game or the dice game variants of a lot of games. Just make, Wingspan the sad ground bird game, and it's just only flightless birds, and you're like, well, this is definitely a bummer, but at least it's shorter.
I love this plan. You should definitely design that.
I'm just gonna keep Pit Elizabeth.
Perfect.
Yeah, and then we wanted to have one more category for like the heavier games. So this is a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. Granted, I tend not to play very many heavy games. It's sort of like a timing thing, and I have to review a bunch of games thing, and who has 3 hours? But this year we settled on the Taverns of Tiefenthal for this one, and this is a bit of a controversial pick because I will happily say, out of the other ones that were on our like complex games list, it was definitely in the lighter category. But I think one of the reasons that we settled on this area as opposed to, say, like Pipeline or Barrage or, Cthulhu Death May Die, for instance, was I think that a lot of folks, like, it's about building that ramp, right? So we're talking about trying to build something that appeals to people who are just coming into the hobby. And while I know from talking to my friends that Pipeline is a great game, it is not necessarily a game that I would just show up to a friend's place and be like, hey, you haven't played any board games before? And slams Pipeline on the table. We're playing Pipeline. Block off the next 3 to 4 hours if you're done.
Yeah, that's a little rough. That's like all of the games that my group plays.
Yeah.
I understand. It does take an investment time.
Yeah, and that's what I think that's one of the reasons that a lot of people like coalesced around Taverns, is the Taverns of Tiefenthal, it builds in complexity. It's got those. Have you played before?
I haven't played that one.
It's deck building, a little bit of dice drafting. So like the nice thing is, as you play, you can add more modules on it, so it grows in complexity in response to the players. So I'd say that the like base core game is on the lighter end, but when it's fully fleshed out with all the expansions and modules, it's really got a good solid weight to it. And I think that was one thing that very much appealed to us about it, was that nice gentle ramp up into something that's very heavy, or on the heavier side, at least. You're talking to, again, someone who pretty much only specializes in light games. But,
yeah, that's fair.
but it's definitely something that's, I think, a lot of people that resonated with a lot of the committee.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So how do you get that list out to the people that you want to see it? So, of course, like trying to reach that more casual or that new gamer is going to be hard. They're not digging into the depths of BGG forums, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So what do you do to get that information out to them?
Well, we were super lucky this year, like very fortunate that someone from Polygon reached out and actually wanted to talk to us a fair bit about that. And Polygon has been doing a lot of work in sort of broadening their scope from just video games to also including board games and other forms of gaming. You've seen it in other things too. Ars Technica has opened up Ars Cardboard, which is a really great read. And NBC, I think it might have been today, or was it the shop, NBC Shopping? NBC as a whole, at least, reached out to us as well. And I think they've got a pretty good pool of people who regularly check them. And so we've been fortunate that we've gotten some good context to reach out to like broaden our scope with that. And I think that we've been really, really pleased with the reception, honestly.
That's awesome. So this is something you're going to continue doing, the American Tabletop Awards.
Oh yeah. It's
Nice.
nice. I think that a lot of people on the committee are enthusiastic about the games, and at the end of the day, that's why we made our sort of little epithet, like play great games, is that that's what we want to do. We want to encourage people to find games they're enthusiastic about, play them, and then talk more about them, right? Just highlight stuff that really resonates with people, and that's something that we're hoping to do on the committee as well.
I really appreciate that. I think that's a very good thing to be doing for the whole society right now. Like all of us need more games and we're just all better off for it. So getting that information out in different ways that resonate with people is really, I think, valuable for everyone. That's super cool. Well, thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
I also have another slightly related topic. So how do you think that games, since you've been looking at all of these games from different perspectives, reviewing them, giving them awards, how do you think that games are evolving right now? Like, are you seeing any really cool, innovative things that are happening? Or do you think we've kind of hit all of those really big points in the way that board games can work, different ways you can win, all of that, and we're just kind of flattening out and optimizing now?
Oh no, I think there's always new ways to innovate on on this sort of stuff, right? Like we're talking, I think you're going to see, and I think we are seeing a lot of innovation in like the app-driven board game space right now. So like, as you know, Search for Planet X is app-driven as well, and that is. I got a chance to play a preview of it, and that's been just an absolute blast for me. But I think even what was it? A lot of Nikki Valence's work on Mansions of Madness, the second edition, was some really cool stuff in the app-driven space. And I think especially as we're looking at more of a how long are we going to be, doing physical distancing, having games with states that are determined by app might make it possible for you to have sort of, you have your copy of the game, I have my copy of the game, and the app communicates a shared state between the two of us so that I can play my game while still keeping track of your moves and vice versa as we're working on, defeating some monster or like, building a town, building a farm, whatever they theme games, trading gems in the Renaissance. There it was. I was so close to it. I just keep forgetting about that one. It just never pops up,
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that app-driven board games are really fascinating, and I understand the urge to disconnect completely and not want to have anything on your table that could be distracting. But at the same time, there's this really cool, powerful tool that we have and we should be using it. And I think if you can use it in the right way, it's very neat. And me personally, like when I was a kid, I would do lots of those puzzles, deduction puzzles, where you were given a set of information and you had to try and figure out the rest of it. Like there's these different colored flowers in front of these different colored houses. Where does Susie live? Like using deduction. And so when I played The Search for Planet X with Randy at Foxtrot Games for the first time, I was just blown away. Like this is exactly the game that should have been made for me. I just love this game so much.
I do too. That is the exact same kind of puzzle that I like to solve. Now, I will say that when I first played it, I was playing with one of my friends who, great guy, much smarter than I am. He nuked me at it. Like we just pulled it out of the box and he just like nuked me from orbit. And I was like, okay, so I'm just going to ask, like, what happened? What did I even, like, he's like, well, when you were doing this, I was writing this stuff down. I was like, oh, you were like thinking about your turn while I was doing mine. I was just kind of playing in a vacuum. So that didn't work. So needless to say, I learned a few things that way. But yeah, that game's a lot of fun. I also think that it tends, at least, and I think you would probably know more about this than I would, but at least on the reviewer side, I tend to notice that there's sort of year-long waves in terms of like what different themes are for games, where like it might be a theme that pops up a lot. Like I know there's a lot of bee games happening right now, just games about bees. Or there's also, I think roll and writes were a big trend last year. I'm not totally sure what this year's trend is. I'm hoping it's trick taking, but
so too.
I was playing The Crew, and I can't say enough good things about The Crew, but
The only problem is, so the crew looks very exciting, but I haven't been able to get 3 people in one place at one time to play it. So it's nice because, like, I can play the Fox in the Forest or the Fox in the Forest duet with my husband, and that's perfect. But the crew looks really, really cool, and I just can't play it because I don't have one other person. It's a 3 to 6 or 3 to 5 player game.
Yeah, 3 to 5, I think. Yeah. No, I was in a bad state because I've been wanting to get it since BGG-Con. I played it maybe like 10, 15 times at BGG-Con. And then I got it the day before my office closed for lockdown. So I managed to talk some of my housemates who are, I'd say they enjoy playing games, but they tend not to pursue them. So since we're in a house together for a long period of time, I've been trying not to push it as a thing, but they really liked it. Actually, I played Time Chase with them as well. Nice. Time Chase was definitely, as soon as we finished playing it, the people that we were playing it with were like, is there any way we could just play that again?
Nice.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Which I think is always a highlight. So those two have really been my like big wins in the trick-taking space lately, between Time Chase and the crew.
It's fantastic. Before I forget, because our listeners are probably excited about this, Desiree is going to put a little link into the chat really quick. And if you fill out that form using the special code word Renegade Con, all one word, you will be able to enter for a chance to win a copy of The Search for Planet X. Yay! Or Clip Cut Parks. And Clip Cut Parks is a roll and cut game, sort of like a roll and write game, except that you're cutting things with actual scissors that come in the box. It's very silly and fun. And it's already out now, but The Search for Planet X is coming out on June 10th. So if you are excited or it sounds interesting, please try and win a copy. And if you don't win a copy, it'll be out soon. So.
I would definitely recommend entering if you can, though. These are two games that I've just really loved. I've played both of them a ton. Just fantastic titles.
Nice. Yeah, and the Clip Cut Parks extra player pads, we sell those on our website too. So if you play it a million times in a row and are having fun with it, you can just order a new set of pads if you go through too many, which is nice. I think that's kind of a challenge with roll and write games if you like it too much.
Yeah, well, it's specifically a challenge for me because I'm really gonna just throw myself under the nerd bus here, but I tend to laminate my roll and write sheets when I get them. And that doesn't work super well for clip cut.
Oh, yes, that's true. That actually was one reason why we specifically wanted to make sure we made extras of that, is because I think a lot of people do laminate their roll and writes. At least people serious like you and Suzanne Sheldon. I'm sure you both.
Oh yeah, Suzanne was the one who convinced me to get a laminator, so.
I believe it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, she's the one who first introduced my husband to roll and writes, and now like half of our collection is roll and write games. So she has a way of encouraging people to make good choices.
Yeah. No, I usually go to her when I'm like, so I was thinking about getting this roll and write. Have you tried it? Is it good? And she'll give me the most of the time she gives me the.
She could have her own award category just for roll and writes, and I would pay very close attention.
I pay very close attention to it as well.
You should just bring her into the committee and have a whole other section.
Just let her be like, so we're all in this committee and we've got our 4 things, but then Suzanne's getting her own thing.
Yep, exactly.
I'm not totally opposed to that.
It's nice. Yeah, I have an RPG I'm trying to put together with her and Mandy, so I'll have to tell her that.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm playing The Search for Planet X with Mandy here not too long, actually, because exactly like you said, it's one of the few games that if she has a copy and I have a copy, we can easily just play it together. Mm-hmm. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. You'll have to join us. That would be super fun if you're interested.
Yeah, let me know at some point. I'd be down
to do that. That would be exciting. All right, so next, totally random topic. No segue required at all. Are you playing Animal Crossing?
So much. I actually just built a robot hero. I'm very excited. It's been a hell of a day.
Nice. So I have actually not played it, and it's really fun for me to hear about all of the other people playing it. Because when I ask people about Animal Crossing, it's so random. It's like this whole other world that I know nothing about, but there's apparently tarantulas and robots and beautiful couches and artwork on your wall.
That's definitely true.
friends, and I don't know how all of these things can come together in one place, but it sounds fantastic.
It's a game that makes you excited about having a mortgage. So you're like, finally, a house to pay off.
Oh my goodness.
Which, like, I've been renting out of the Bay Area for a while, so I am a little bit, but.
Oh my goodness, no kidding.
Yeah, but no, it's I think what it is it's if I had to be honest and get in my like armchair psychologist phase, I think it's nice to have a like island and a space that you have complete like executive control over in terms of like what it looks like, where things are, and I think a lot of people find that very relaxing. And if you want to just, go completely wild with it, there's someone who comes every Sunday to sell turnips. And so
a turnip park.
Oh yeah, the stock market.
Yeah.
Mind-bogglingly good pun. I'm like very upset. But so there are people, I'm in a Slack channel, which is wonderful people, but every week it's like, all right, so my turnips are 90 bells. Okay, my turnips are 110. No one's coming to my island. So it's just like all these people doing like rough tourism runs, try and find the cheapest buys and the most expensive sells. And so we're, making millions on this like online stock trading thing.
Oh my goodness, you need to get Scott Gata in there. That's the only thing he's doing in Animal Crossing is intense turnip stock market adventures. I
made like 14 million bells, so I'm kind of just like resting on my very expensive laurels now and like focusing on building out like, I'm like, oh, I would like to have this section of my island be a board game cafe. And so it's just like, setting up some stalls, putting an espresso machine, like it's a very specific mood.
I like it. What's the most interesting board game thing you've seen inside Animal Crossing so far?
So I think it is really, actually, I will say, just in general, the most interesting thing I've been seeing is a lot of designer brands, like designer fashion brands, are trying to put their clothes into Animal Crossing, so you can like, which is wild to me.
How do you think about that?
I'm basically just like, if you're into it, like if you got an audience for it. And I've been seeing a couple board game companies doing that as well. So like what you'll see is I think it was some companies are converting their box art in Animal Crossing like type images and then giving QR codes out so that people can hang up pictures of the box art in their houses. So if you specifically like I don't know, Castell, or if you specifically like, X game or Y game, you can get the cover, put the cover in your house and be like, yeah. So a lot of people are building up little like board game walls.
I love it. That's so fantastic.
It's very cute.
I really think you hit the nail on the head, though, that you have so much control in Animal Crossing over what you want your experience to be like and what you want your environment that you're spending time in to look like. And we just don't have that kind of control in the current world situation. And so it's really nice to be able to do that somewhere.
Yep.
So I think that's very intuitive. That's cool.
Oh, yeah. I'm much more into virtual gardening than I am real life gardening.
Oh my goodness. I'm in the middle of expanding our deck, setting up all my gardens, like trying to save my tomatoes. Like those are all actual things though, and it's very overwhelming. So it'd be really nice to just click on some buttons every day and have it work.
Yep, that's basically where I'm at. Is I'm like, I would like to plant this tree here, and then it's a tree, and that's it. There's no maintenance. I don't have to worry about like weird vines or like tree illnesses.
Oh my gosh, if I could just keep the deer away from my trees, I would be so happy.
I will tell you, my uncle's a pretty intense real life gardener, and what he has is these motion detecting sprinklers.
I was thinking about getting some of those. Yeah.
I will caution you only that they are very nice and very effective, but you have to remember where they are and what direction the sensor is facing.
I would be wet all the time.
Yeah, you're just gonna get like slammed with it. Like it's very unpleasant in the dark. It's a very nasty surprise. It's very loud. So.
Oh, I also have chickens, and I have to go out and like close up the coop and like get them ready for bed every single night. And I would definitely run into the deer sprinkler.
Yep. It's a function of your life that you're gonna have to accept when you like get a motion detecting sprinkler. Is this is eventually going to hit me? It is the Chekhov's gun of sprinklers, and it's just very much like this is happening at some point.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious. Well, we are almost out of time. Before we take a few questions, I did want to just remind everybody one more time. So for the contest, the code word is Renegade Con, all one word. And also a few other important things just going on with Renegade in general this week. We do have a spring sale. You mentioned Castell. Castell is 50% off this week on our website. There's also a bundle deal where you can get Castell, Wendake, Reichholt, and Passing Through Petra all for $100, the whole bundle. So if you're looking for some midweight games, or a little bit heavier, that's a really good way to do it. Also, we launched Power Rangers, our Kickstarter this week. So if you're into Power Rangers, which I know a lot of our viewers usually are, you've probably already heard about it, but go check that out. And we already talked about Renegade Con. So remember, that's the keyword. It should be exciting. Go get your free tickets. All right, Desiree.
Hello.
Do you have one?
Yes, so we have a few questions.
Yay.
So, and also if anybody has any further questions, you can go ahead and put those in any of the chats. So first question for Eric, what's Eric's favorite thing about reviewing that people wouldn't expect?
Good question. What's the? Let's see here.
A lot about, like, people know about board games already, so that's kind of tricky because there's not probably a lot to it. I mean, you play the game and then you tell people what you think, but you have to put everything on a nice website. You have to make it look all pretty. You have to take your beautiful pictures. Is there any part of that you enjoy, the actual, like, functional logistical part of it more or less?
I think what I really like about reviewing is if you're talking to someone else who's also reviewing the game, and sort of, or even just someone else who's a fan of the game or not a fan of the game, and just getting to have a bit of dialogue about it. Just sort of like if we're talking about, X game or Y game, and someone's like, oh, I really, really liked this. And I think that, actually, yeah, that's the thing, is the thing I really enjoy about reviewing that I think a lot of people wouldn't expect is the nuances of how to frame your opinion. Not just coming out somewhere and saying this game's bad, or saying this game's good, this game is the best game that's ever been made. Like trying to reminding myself that I am experiencing the game through a subjective lens, and that I need to be authentic within my own subjectivity, right? So saying like, here's something that I thought about the game that really stuck out to me, or that was really interesting or compelling, or here's a really cool experience or a really cool story that happened when we were playing this game. It's sort of like, if you ask me about Search for Planet X, one of my favorite experiences about that game was getting absolutely smoked by my friend. Like I will put on my like obnoxious gamer hat for a second. It's a hat that I rarely take off, but and say like, I play a fair bit of games. I like to think that I'm all right at games, and so getting devastated in a game is always just a really exciting experience for me. It's sort of like you're looking at the rubble of your entire like game board experience. Like, what just happened? Did I just get like massacred in this game? And so for me, from a reviewer standpoint, that doesn't happen that frequently. So trying to dig into that experience, then present it to a reader or present it to someone who's looking to learn more about this game, and like talking about like, well, strategically, here's all the places where that went really badly for me, or here's a way that the game allowed for this really interesting thing to happen to me. So I'd say that if I'm coalescing and sort of retconning my previous answer, it's figuring out the nuances of the game that you're playing and letting yourself be surprised by an experience that's going to happen. So I like surprise when I'm playing a game. I think that's probably my favorite part about it. And I get to play a lot of new games and a lot of different games, so that surprise pops up every now and then.
Pretty awesome.
Awesome. All right, and then let's see. Then we had a few new questions come in. What are your top 5 medium weight games?
I don't even know what medium weight is.
I guess in your definition of a medium weight, I guess.
Oh man. Well, time to make a fool of myself. Let me see here. Well, this one I will say is incredibly subjective because it's going to rely on 2 or 3 major factors. The first one is, what games can I think of offhand? The second one is, if I turn around, I've got one shelf behind me of games. Which games can I think of that are on that shelf and will pop in my mind immediately? And the third, what do I think medium weight qualifies as? So Let me think here for a second. Let me just try to casually not bring up my board game review spreadsheet and go back through that and pretend like I'm being authentic about it. So if you see me looking this way, it means that I'm looking at a screen that has my spreadsheet on it and that I'm cheating. So try to catch my eye if I'm doing that. But mid-weight.
Would you say like Wingspan is more casual or more midweight?
I'd say it's probably mid-weight because it's definitely in the heavier side of things that you would catch like me playing. I would say, oh, that's a little bit on the heavier end for me personally. And so that I think pretty quickly explains like what my preferences end up being, my like weight tolerance is. But I did really like, I think from just this year, I really liked I'm gonna mess up the pronunciation, but Echoes First Continent from Alderrock. I thought that was a lot of fun. In terms of like what games have I played recently, I would say The Search for Planet X definitely comes up, and I just really like it. What else have I played lately that I actually quite liked? I don't know if I would say It's a Wonderful World is midweight. It's probably on the lighter end of that category. That one, it's a very much a like straight drafting game, but it's got some really cool progressions, and the way that you get resources is determined by like a certain player order. So like you get gray resources first, and then you can build cards, and then you can get green resources, but you can build cards in between those rounds that will let you get more resources as it progresses. I thought that was a lot of fun. What else? And see, that's the problem. I've mostly been playing light games recently. I think partially because with everything going on, I haven't really had the like crew in place to sit down and play something heavy. So yeah,
I've been doing a lot of puzzles. I'm in kind of the same situation. My husband and I will occasionally play like something that takes a long time together, but mostly we've been doing lighter stuff.
Yeah, Mega City Oceania was a lot of fun. If you've played that one.
Mega City Oceanos?
Oceania?
No, I haven't played that.
It's Hub. So what you're doing is you're basically building a mega city in the middle of the ocean. What you have to do is you have to get pieces to try and fulfill contracts, but you're actually using the like pieces to build this building, and then you have to just like Snowman Dice, you have to push that building towards the center of the play area, and if it falls over, it can be a mess. So, yeah, you have to very much try to not like ruin the entire gameplay experience. I'm doing a very bad job of saying what my top 5 are, as opposed to just like spitting off a list of games that I've enjoyed recently. But that's
okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's also on brand. I tend to not think of things in terms of like top X or top Y.
It is really interesting, though, just the question itself and how differently you would answer that in the categories of games that you would think of versus, say, me. Like, it sounds like I play a lot of much heavier games than you. Like, Fields of Arl, and that's just like pretty standard. Like, that's just the baseline of games that I usually would be playing, or like Teotihuacan or Terraforming Mars or like Underwater Cities. So those to me are all like pretty medium weight games. And then like Arkwright is probably a heavyweight game, because it's just spreadsheets the game.
And for me, I'm like, oh, Terraforming Mars, that game's pretty heavy. I will say a deep cut is there's one game that I really enjoy that I hardly ever hear people talk about, and that bums me out because I thought it was great. But they made The Legend of Korra Pro Bending Arena. It's from IDW a while back. I thought that game was incredible. Like it's a Last Airbender universe, like deck building, area threat more than area control game, but I thought it was a blast.
I had it on the shelf in my store, but I haven't actually ever played it.
It's something that I think it benefits if you've like watched the series and you're familiar with like how that whole thing works, but I think it's a lot of fun, that I was a little bit bummed to not see a ton of people like really digging into it.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like sometimes games, for a variety of weird reasons, just don't quite hit the way you would expect them to. Surprising, but
Well, that's awesome. You kind of answered another one. So, what I guess, would you consider that to be a game you love that you feel is unfairly forgotten?
Oh, there are many games that I love that I feel are unfairly forgotten. This is me on my I've planted the flag. I'm going to die on the careers is a great game and no one can tell me otherwise hill. And I've just made peace with that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, there's several. There's a really I forgot Near and Far. There it was. I mean, I just thought of that. I'm definitely not reading a list off on my other monitor or anything. I'm very good at this. But I was playing. There's a small company based out of SF, San Francisco, that made a little bluffing game called Cake Duel that I think is wonderful. It's one of my like all-time favorite games. It's basically imagine Coup but designed for 2 players as a like back and forth little bluffing game. So I'd attack with 3 soldiers and you defend with 2 defenders. But my 3 soldiers are just 3 random cards and I'm lying. And so you can either call me on my bluff or try to defend. And that back and forth of attacking and defending switches between players until one player is out of health in this case. And so I think it's a very quick, very cool little game. But I try to when I can just throw at other reviewers that I know and just be like, play this. Sometimes they listen to me, sometimes they don't.
Fair enough.
Awesome.
Nice. Any other questions?
Yeah, so we'll do one more because I know we are now hitting the 5 o'clock mark, but one more. So let's see. If you were stuck on a desert island for a year, what game would you choose to have with you? I think that's a good one to end off with.
So flippant answer. Yeah, I was gonna say. My flippant answer is immediately Millennium Blades because I could use the components of Millennium Blades to construct a shelter. I also love the game, but it's a gigantic game. There's like 3,000 cards. I could live in the box.
It's a lot of stuff.
Like it's a lifestyle.
It's a pretty intense game. I would agree with that.
Yeah. Oh man. In terms of the games that I play the most frequently, if I were stuck with more people, I might say The Crew. If I was stuck purely by myself, I might say, and this is going to be I'm going to throw it out there, but maybe Sprawlopolis, the button shy like 18 card build or city building game. It's a game that I just keep in my pocket most times when I go anywhere, and I'll just like bust out a game and play it, and like I think I can get through a full game in 3 to 5 minutes. So play it, clear it, go again. That or the Shipwreck Arcana if I have more people. That was another game that I feel like didn't get a ton of coverage, but I think is a fantastic little deduction game. It's actually got a lot of similarities to Search for Planet X, but it's a little bit more like math focused and less like logic puzzle focused.
Interesting. It's pretty cool.
Awesome.
Nice. Well, fantastic. Just one more time for anybody watching, the link to the contest is in the chat, and the code word for that is Renegade Con, and that will enter you for a chance to win the Search for Planet X, and also potentially one other person will win Clip Cut Parks. So that is about it for today. Eric, thank you so much for coming. Tell people how they can get a hold of you, how they can find you after this.
Thanks for having me on. It was a great time. So generally speaking, my website is what'sericplaying.com. So if you are like, I'd like to read a board game review, but one with too many words, just so many words, you can find it there. I'm about as wordy there as I am here. If you just want to, yell at me in real life, I'm on Twitter at What's E Playing, due to What's Eric Playing being 16 characters, and Twitter has a 15 character limit. That was fun to find out after the fact. And yeah, beyond that, I'm same stuff for Facebook, but usually I'm most often on Instagram at Instagram What's Eric Playing or Twitter What's E Playing.
Perfect. And if anybody wants to check in with Renegade, you know where we're at here, but you can also find us at renegadegames.com. That's where we have our spring board game sale happening right now. And you can also find us on Facebook at PlayRGS, on Twitter at PlayRenegade, and also on Instagram, renegadegames.com. So thank you, everybody. It's been wonderful. And Desiree, thank you for moderating. We really appreciate having you here and for bringing us.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
And we'll see all of you later. Thanks again, Eric. Have a great afternoon.
Yeah, thanks. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.